Hi, welcome to Insibook. Today I'll start with a question. Are you running out of time or just using it wrong? In Meditations for Mortals, Oliver Burkeman returns with a powerful follow-up to 4,000 Weeks, offering sharp, surprising, and soul-centering insights on how to truly live in the face of mortality. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by productivity hacks or stuck in the spiral of not enough time, this book might just shift everything. Let's dive in. We live in an age saturated with the promise of more productivity, more connection, more experiences, more happiness. The digital world whispers constant invitations to optimize, improve, and achieve, presenting an ever-expanding menu of possibilities. Yet, for many of us, this deluge leads not to fulfillment, but to a pervasive sense of overwhelm, anxiety, and the nagging feeling that we're falling short, never quite doing enough. There's a deep restlessness, a constant striving against the constraints of our own lives, a sense that if only we could manage our time better, learn the right techniques, or find the perfect system, we could finally achieve that elusive state of having it all under control. But what if this fundamental struggle is based on a misunderstanding? What if the relentless pursuit of optimization, the desperate attempt to escape limitations, is precisely what generates so much of our modern discontent? Imagine stepping back from the frantic effort to cram more into your days, to conquer every perceived deficiency, and instead, considering a radically different approach, embracing the very limitations you've been trying so hard to overcome. This isn't about resignation or giving up. It's about recognizing the profound truth that your time, your energy, and your capacity are finite. The average human lifespan, perhaps around 4,000 weeks, is a surprisingly short span. This reality isn't a cruel joke or a problem to be solved, but the fundamental condition of human existence. Understanding this finitude, truly internalizing it, isn't a cause for despair, but the very foundation upon which a richer, more meaningful life can be built. This shift in perspective begins with confronting some awkward truths. We are not, despite the constant messaging, machines capable of infinite output or boundless growth. We are limited beings, and pretending otherwise leads only to frustration. Think about the sheer volume of tasks, emails, notifications, social obligations, and self-improvement goals that clamor for your attention daily. The impulse is to tackle them all, to become more efficient, to carve out slivers of time for everything. But this approach often results in a shallow engagement with everything and a deep dissatisfaction with the inability to truly master any of it. The first step toward a different way of living involves acknowledging this inherent constraint, not as a failure, but as a starting point. It means recognizing that you simply cannot do everything you want to do, nor can you become everyone you might ideally wish to be. This realization naturally leads us toward ancient wisdom, particularly the insights of Stoicism, re-examined for the realities of the 21st century. One of its most powerful ideas is the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. So much of our anxiety stems from trying to manage or change things that lie entirely outside our sphere of influence: the past, other people's actions and opinions, global events, the future's unpredictable trajectory. The Stoics suggested a profound redirection of energy. Focus intently on what is within your control: your judgments, your intentions, your responses, your actions in this present moment. This isn't about passive acceptance of bad situations, but about actively choosing how you engage with them. When faced with a difficult situation, instead of lamenting its unfairness or wishing it were different, you can ask, what is my response here? What virtuous action can I take, even within these constraints? This focus doesn't eliminate challenges, but it empowers you to meet them with greater equanimity and purpose, freeing you from the exhausting burden of trying to control the uncontrollable. Consider the practice of negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum. This isn't about wallowing in misery, but about deliberately contemplating potential future difficulties, losses, or setbacks. Imagine losing your job, facing illness, or having a cherished relationship strained. By mentally rehearsing these scenarios, not morbidly but thoughtfully, you achieve several things. You begin to appreciate the stability and blessings you currently possess, reducing the constant craving for novelty and improvement. More importantly, you build psychological resilience. When adversity does strike, as it inevitably will, because life is inherently unpredictable, you won't be caught completely off guard. The emotional shock will be lessened because you've already considered the possibility. This practice helps inoculate you against the suffering that comes from the gap between your expectations and reality. It trains your mind to accept the inherent fragility of things, making you less vulnerable to the anxieties that arise from the illusion of perpetual safety and control. The modern world, with its emphasis on constant stimulation and distraction, makes cultivating this inner resilience incredibly difficult. Our attention is constantly under siege. Emails ping, social media feeds scroll endlessly, news alerts clamor for notice. Each notification pulls you away from the present moment, fragments your focus, and trains your mind to crave the next stimulus. This isn't just an inconvenience, it actively undermines your ability to engage deeply with anything: your work, your relationships, even your own thoughts and feelings. Resisting this pull requires a conscious, deliberate effort to reclaim your attention. It means making choices about where you direct your focus, understanding that attention is one of the most precious, finite resources you possess. It might involve consciously deciding to turn off notifications, setting aside specific times for checking emails, or creating physical or mental space free from digital intrusion. The goal isn't necessarily to eliminate distractions entirely, an impossible task, but to become much more intentional about when and how you engage with them, and to prioritize activities that demand sustained, focused attention. This cultivation of presence is deeply intertwined with accepting the less pleasant aspects of life. We tend to categorize emotions as good or bad and strive relentlessly to banish the bad ones: anxiety, boredom, frustration, sadness. But these feelings are often unavoidable signals, responses to the realities of a finite existence. Trying to eliminate them is like trying to eliminate the weather. Instead, perhaps the path forward is to learn to sit with them, to engage with them curiously rather than reactively. Boredom, for instance, isn't just a state to be escaped through constant entertainment. It can be a fertile ground for creativity and introspection, but only if you allow yourself to experience it without immediately reaching for a distraction. Anxiety often points to things you care about or fears about the future you can't control. By acknowledging it, by sitting with the discomfort without needing to fix it instantly, you can often lessen its grip and gain clarity about what truly matters. This acceptance doesn't mean liking these feelings, but it does mean recognizing their presence as part of the human condition rather than as personal failures. Life, when viewed through this lens, isn't a grand project to be completed or optimized, but a series of moments to be lived. The pursuit of some distant future goal often prevents us from appreciating the present. We tell ourselves, "I'll be happy when I get that promotion, when I finish this project, when I lose the weight." But happiness, if it exists, is found in the quality of attention you bring to the present moment, not in the attainment of some future state. This means finding value in the ordinary, the mundane tasks that make up the bulk of life. Washing dishes, commuting, having a conversation with a colleague. These might seem like interruptions to the real business of life, but they are, in fact, the substance of life itself. The challenge is to bring a conscious presence to these activities, to perform them with intention and care, rather than rushing through them in anticipation of something better. This doesn't mean finding profound meaning in every trivial task, but rather performing necessary actions well, recognizing their place in the larger tapestry of your life. The digital landscape, particularly social media, often acts as a powerful amplifier of our anxieties and our resistance to finitude. It presents curated highlight reels of others' lives, fostering comparison and a sense of inadequacy. It encourages performative engagement and rewards superficiality, pulling us away from the deeper, often messier, realities of our own experiences. The constant stream of information, opinions, and updates fragments our attention and can make genuine, focused connection feel increasingly difficult. Recognizing the ways these platforms exploit our psychological vulnerabilities is crucial. Choosing to limit engagement, to curate your feed more consciously, or even to step away periodically becomes an act of self-preservation, a way to reclaim your time and attention for things that genuinely nourish you. It's about resisting the seductive but ultimately empty promise of validation and connection offered by the digital ether in favor of the more demanding but ultimately more rewarding practice of being present in your actual life. Making choices, in this context, becomes less about selecting the optimal path from an overwhelming array of options, and more about the act of choosing itself as a way of defining what matters. The paradox of choice tells us that having too many options can lead to anxiety, indecision, and dissatisfaction. We second-guess our choices, wondering if a different option would have yielded a better outcome. Embracing finitude involves making deliberate, even limiting choices. It means saying no to many good things in order to say yes to a few truly important things. It requires accepting that any choice you make will mean foregoing countless other possibilities, and that this is not a tragedy, but a necessary consequence of living a focused life. Instead of agonizing over the perfect choice, the focus shifts to committing to the choice you've made and engaging with it fully, extracting the value and learning from that specific path. Consider the way we approach personal growth. There's a pervasive cultural narrative that encourages constant self-reinvention, the belief that we should always be striving to become a better version of ourselves. This can morph into a relentless self-criticism, a feeling that we are fundamentally flawed and need perpetual fixing. The alternative perspective suggests that while growth and learning are valuable, they should arise from a place of acceptance rather than self-rejection. Instead of trying to eradicate perceived weaknesses, perhaps focus on understanding them, on integrating them into your sense of self, and on cultivating strengths that already exist. It's less about radical transformation and more about deepening your engagement with who you already are, acknowledging your inherent worth alongside your imperfections. This approach can be far more sustainable and lead to a greater sense of peace than the exhausting cycle of self-improvement often promoted. This journey involves cultivating specific mental habits. One is the practice of perspective taking. When faced with a frustrating situation or a minor annoyance, consciously zoom out. Consider the vastness of cosmic time or the sheer improbability of your own existence. How significant does this problem seem now? This isn't to dismiss genuine difficulties, but to gain proportion, to recognize that most of the things we worry about are relatively small in the grand scheme. Similarly, reflecting on mortality, not in a morbid way, but as a reminder of life's preciousness, can clarify priorities. What truly matters when you consider the limited time you have? This reflection helps strip away the trivialities and focus attention on what is essential. It can foster a deeper appreciation for relationships, for simple experiences, and for the opportunity to act in accordance with your values. The path isn't about achieving a state of permanent bliss or freedom from difficulty. It's about changing your relationship to difficulty, to limitation, and to your own imperfect self. It involves recognizing that striving for control is often the source of suffering. Think of trying to hold water in your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more escapes. True freedom, in this sense, comes not from mastering external circumstances, but from mastering your inner responses. It's about finding a way to live fully, engaging deeply with the world and with others, precisely within the boundaries of your finitude. It means accepting that discomfort, uncertainty, and even suffering are integral parts of a worthwhile human life, not aberrations to be eliminated. This involves a subtle but profound shift in how you approach daily tasks and decisions. Instead of asking, "What's the most productive thing I can do?" perhaps ask, "What is the most meaningful thing I can do, given my limited time and energy?" This might lead you to choose a conversation with a loved one over answering one more email, or to spend time simply being present rather than filling every moment with activity. It's about consciously choosing where to invest your finite resources of time and attention, understanding that every yes to something is implicitly a no to countless other things. This acceptance of necessary exclusions is liberating, freeing you from the anxiety of missing out on potential opportunities. Furthermore, this perspective encourages a different way of relating to others. When you accept your own limitations and imperfections, you may find it easier to extend compassion and understanding to others, recognizing their own struggles and finitude. Instead of getting frustrated by a colleague's perceived inefficiency or a friend's unreliability, you can approach the situation with a greater degree of patience, focusing on what you can influence, your own reactions, and your communication. Building genuine connection often requires vulnerability and the willingness to engage with complexities, rather than seeking simple solutions or perfect interactions. It means showing up even when it's uncomfortable and being willing to navigate the inevitable friction that arises when different human beings, with their own limitations and perspectives, interact. The core message is one of radical acceptance, but an acceptance that fuels action rather than passivity. It's about acknowledging the reality of your situation, your limited time, your imperfect capabilities, the uncontrollable nature of much of life, and choosing to act meaningfully within that reality. It's about finding freedom not by transcending limitations, but by engaging with them wisely. This might mean purposefully choosing activities that are challenging or even uncomfortable, recognizing that growth often happens at the edges of your comfort zone. It could involve committing to practices that build mental fortitude, like mindfulness or structured reflection, not as means to achieve a perfect state of mind, but as ways to develop the capacity to navigate life's inherent difficulties with greater skill and grace. Ultimately, this way of living invites you to let go of the exhausting pursuit of an idealized future self or a perfectly controlled existence. It encourages you to find contentment and purpose in the here and now, accepting the inherent messiness and limitations of being human. It's a call to make conscious choices about how you spend your finite time and attention, to engage with challenges rather than trying to escape them, and to find meaning not in grand achievements, but in the quality of your presence and the integrity of your actions, moment by moment. It's a path toward a more grounded, resilient, and ultimately more rewarding way of navigating the all-too-short span of human life. It suggests that true fulfillment lies not in overcoming our limits, but in learning to live fully within them.